This is the year of India's presidency of the G20 grouping of nations. And there's a whole host of events lined up throughout this year until the main summit happens. And all of these events will be held in India in various parts of the country, in all across the nation, in a variety of different cities. So everybody, wherever you are, if you are living in a reasonably big size city, most likely you will get a taste of the G20 proceedings and India's role in that, India's presidency of the G20 grouping of nations. So I also participated in the S20 initiation meeting, which was held in Puducherry last weekend. That's the reason why I could not do the live streams last weekend. So let's talk about that. Let's put some of these things on the screen, and let's talk about what this is all about. Let's give me a second. Here we are. Let's talk about the G20. So this is about G20. This is the G20.org website. As you can see, it has the Indian logo this year. Yes, on the top left. The group of 20, we know what it is. It was the inception happened in 1999. It was elevated to a leaders level in 2008. These are the member nations. So it comprises 19 nations: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, the UK, and the US. It also has the European Union. The G20 members represent 85% of the world's GDP and over 75% of the global trade, and about 2/3 of the world's population, because India and China are part of it. Yeah. And this year you have guest countries: Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain, and the UAE, and a number of invited international organizations like the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, WHO, WTO, and so on. And India, as G20 presidency, will be inviting the ISA, CDRI, and the ADB as guest IOs. ADB is the Asian Development Bank. CDRI is ISA is the International Solar Alliance, and so on. So there are three nations this year. So let's understand what the G20 presidency is all about. Every year, one nation on a rotation basis is given it takes over the mantle of the G20 presidency, and this nation steers the agenda for 1 year and hosts the summit. So there are two main parallel tracks: the finance track and the Sherpa track. Finance ministers and central bank governors take care of the finance track, and the Sherpas lead the Sherpa track after the finance track. So that's what it is. Within the two tracks, there are thematically oriented working groups in which various representatives from various ministries and other nations participate. And there are engagement groups that bring together civil society, parliamentarians, think tanks, women, youth, labor, businesses, and researchers of the G20 countries. The presidency is supported by a troika: the previous president, the current president, and the incoming next year's president. So this year it's India, supported by Indonesia and Brazil. And we have had a whole bunch of summits starting from 2008 onwards. And this is, I'm not sure what this is. It's an error message. That's fine. So we have three tracks. One is the finance track, in which we have global macroeconomic issues, and it's got a whole number of working groups: the framework working group, the international financial architecture, infrastructure, sustainable finance, global partnership, joint finance and health task force, international taxation agenda, financial sector issues. These are the various working groups. Then you have the Sherpa track, in which you have agriculture, anti-corruption, culture, digital economy, disaster risk reduction, development, education, employment, environment and climate, energy, health, trade and investment, and tourism. That's what it is. Then you have a number of engagement groups. So you have business, civil, labor, parliament, science, SAI, Supreme Audit Institutions, Startup 20, Think 20, Urban 20, Women 20, and Youth 20. So I participated in the Science 20 initiation meeting that was held in Puducherry last weekend. This engagement group comprises of the national science academies of the G20 nations. It presents policymakers with consensus-based science-driven recommendations formulated through task forces comprising international experts. So the S20 website is now live, and when it comes to the G20 calendar, you have a whole lot of events that are going to happen across throughout the year. This is the calendar for February. You have the Sherpa track and the finance track, Bengaluru, Run of Kutch, interesting. Bengaluru again, Indore, Lucknow, Bengaluru, Khajuraho. That's for February. That's a whole lot of activities. And then you have March. A lot of stuff is happening. Gandhinagar, Chandigarh, Mumbai, Kumarakam, Udaipur, Amritsar, Hyderabad, Delhi, Gurugram, Guwahati, Darjeeling. You can see the Northeast is involved, Bengal is involved, Goa, Varanasi, Bhubaneswar, Odisha is involved. Very good to see that. And it looks like the future meetings have not yet been penciled in over here, but that's you get the idea. The entire nation gets a taste of this. Many events are going to be held in the northeast of the nation. Uh, Puducherry is a small town, more or less, but it also got a taste of the G20. So, it brings in a lot of enthusiasm from the various state governments and the local district administrations and the people. Everybody gets a taste of this big world event, which is wonderful. Uh, this is the Science 20 website. Uh, and we're going to have 5 total meetings in total of the S20 engagement group. The first one in Puducherry has already been done. This is for setting the stage. That's what the initiation meeting was about. The next meeting is going to be in Agartala. It's going to be about clean energy for a greener future. Yes. The next one is after that is in Lakshadweep, Bangaram Island. It's about universal holistic health. The next one is in Bhopal. It's about connecting science to society and culture. And the final meeting, which will synthesize all the policy recommendations, is going to be held in Coimbatore. And that document, which will come out of the Coimbatore meeting, the final synthesized document, will be passed on to the G20 secretariat, the main secretariat. So that's how it's all going to be. The focus areas. Let's take a look at overview of S20. So this year, under India's presidency and leadership, India has proposed the following themes with 3 focal points. One is a call for universal holistic health with an emphasis on prevention of disease instead of treating diseases. Then adoption of clean energy for a greener future. And the third one is connecting science to society and culture. The S20 engagement group is Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, Dr. Ajay Sood, and Professor and Dr. Gautam Desiraju, who was recently on this channel in a podcast about a book that Dr. Desiraju has written. So these 3 scientists are the engagement group. They are the 3 leaders, and the S20 secretariat is based in the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where I was last week. I was very graciously and kindly hosted by the Indian Institute of Science, and I interacted with the students. I had an offline session of Ask Abhijit, very interesting, very fun. More than 100 students came. I was very surprised, and it lasted almost like 90 minutes. It could have lasted longer if we had not eventually called a halt to that. So this is the engagement group. Everything is being done from the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, and mainly it is Professor Desiraju who is spearheading, who is leading this entire matter, right? So that's what it is. Now let's take a look at some tweets. This is the G20 India Twitter handle. So this was about the Science 20 inception meeting, which was held on January 30 in Puducherry. The first session, I participated in this. The first session was let's pause that, was the welcome address, and it was about disruptive science for inclusive and sustainable development. The second session of the day was universal holistic health, cure and prevention of disease. The third one was clean energy for a greener future. And the fourth one was connecting science to society and culture. So these are the 4 sessions that were held on January 30. And now let's take a look at the proceedings, just to give you an overview of how these events are held, what it looks like. Let's take a taste of this. So this was an event that was held on the 29th of January, a day before the main event, and delegates from various countries arrived to this place, and Professor Desiraju kicked off the welcome dinner with opening remarks and introduced the goals and the agenda of the S20 meetings. And the same day we had a cultural performance. So this was the international delegates got a taste of Indian culture and music. So we had classical music and all that. Then the next day, this was the venue where the event was held. It was in Puducherry. You can see what it looks like. And then we had various addresses. The first one was by Professor G. Rangarajan, who is the director of the IISc. He spoke about the big challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and all those things that we need to address, that the G20 and the S20 engagement group should address. Then Professor Ashutosh Sharma gave an address, and he spoke about furthering scientific research, education, and all that. And we had these big screens where you could see what was happening in case you were in a corner or slightly far away from the podium. Then it was the turn of Mr. Mohandas Pai, who gave a brilliant, almost 1 hour presentation about what progress we have achieved in the last 100 years. It's possible to achieve more than that in the next 10, 20 years itself. And he gave a very good overview of the areas in which we can focus. What are the areas of disruptive science and technology which will impact the future of the world, like AI, alternate energy, and a lot more. So he spoke very well about this. It was a very interesting, very brilliant talk that he gave, and everybody unanimously uh, appreciated what he said, the speech that he gave, the presentation that he gave. Then there was a talk by Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan of IIT Delhi, in which he spoke about no, Mr. Patwardhan is not IIT Delhi. He's uh, I can't remember which institute he's aligned with, but yeah, he spoke about universal holistic health. This was the thing, yeah. And then this is a tweet by Dr. Robin Grimes, who is the foreign secretary of the Royal Society. Uh, then we had, yeah, this is Professor Ambuj Sagar of IIT Delhi, who spoke about clean energy for a greener future. And there was more. This is Professor Rangarajan, his address. There was this group photograph that was taken during the lunch break. And then this was the next this was that evening there was a dinner in which I gave a 15-minute speech to so this was the speech that opened off the dinner event. So I spoke in for about 15-20 minutes. I spoke about the various challenges that the world is facing, the fact that we have been extremely lucky to have survived thus far, we as a species, human beings, yeah. And I spoke about the various challenges that are in store for us. We have gone through a lot. We are just coming out of the coronavirus pandemic, and there are going to be many more challenges in the future. We have to work together. Today, no problem or no issue is localized or isolated. Every problem that exists in the world is something that impacts the entire world. So we have to all work together. So I spoke about these issues, the fact that it is strange that we still haven't found solutions to legacy diseases like tuberculosis and malaria and dengue, and other things as well. uh, I spoke about the fact that it is very, I mean, we already have the resources and the means today to eradicate global poverty and world hunger, and we are still not able to do that, and we need to introspect as to why that's not happened. And then I spoke a little bit about Indian culture and history, and I invited the foreign delegates especially to embrace and experience Indian culture. I spoke about the fact that India is so incredibly diverse and pluralistic, and yet it's held together by what is clearly one single culture and civilization, which is Indian culture and civilization. So that's briefly what I spoke about for about 15 minutes or so. And then there was a cultural event, dance and all that. So this is a tweet by Professor Desiraju, who was the main essentially the leader who drove this entire event. It was all done under his leadership. So he has. So this is a much larger group photograph that was held later, and you can see that I am over here in over here in the background. Uh, and then the next day there was a tour of the Oroville area in Pondicherry, in which the delegates got to see got a bit of taste of the culture of the city, Puducherry. Yeah, so that's what this was all about. And then they have been tweeting, and this is my tweet: a successful Science 20 inception meeting. The highlights were Mr. Mohandas Pai's brilliant talk and the G20 nations' unanimous support of India's 100-page proposal, which was tabled in this meeting. And yeah, kudos to the S20 engagement group in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and team led by Professor Desiraju that prepared India's proposal. And I've given a link to to India's proposal, which was unanimously praised and accepted by the uh, foreign delegates. So you can go to my Twitter and you can download or this proposal in case you are interested. Here is the proposal. It's about disruptive science for innovative and sustainable development. It's approximately 100 pages long. It's 117 pages, and you can take a look at that. I will not go into the details right now. So this is what it was all about. So let's understand what this means for India. I am part of the S20 S20 deliberations and activities. Overall, you have a lot more that's happening beyond science. There is business, there is entrepreneurship, there is education, there is the Sherpa track, there is the finance track, and so much more. It's a whole lot of events that are happening in India. It's all about coming to a consensus. It's mainly about diplomacy. These events are mainly diplomatic events. Even the science event was a diplomatic event, and it brings in a whole lot of delegates from other nations, from the G20 nations, into India, and it provides India the opportunity to showcase its strengths and to give these delegates a taste of Indian culture, Indian civilization. And it also boosts tourism. So there are a lot of aspects that are covered in this. So it's a great chance for India to showcase its potential, its strengths, its institutions, its brilliant people to the rest of the world. So this essentially, people have been saying for the longest time that it's high time that India steps up to the world stage. People have been saying that India's time has finally arrived. So this is all in line with that. India's time has certainly arrived, and we are now able to take the leadership, even though it's a rotational leadership, so everybody gets that. But we are taking this to a whole different level. There have been a lot of summits that have been held in the past, but none of them has been organized on such a grand scale and such a large scale as the way India is doing it this year. So we are taking this to the next level, to a whole different level. It's about showcasing our strengths. It's about showcasing the fact that we are now on the global stage. We are one of the world leaders. We can drive development and the future. Yeah. So that's what it is all about. It's also going to give a significant boost to Indian tourism, because lots of people from other countries are coming into India, and they will certainly experience India. I exhorted them, the science delegates, to explore and embrace and experience India. It's a it's an experience it's a so it's an experience you will never forget. So this will now spread through word of mouth, and more people will come in. So it's great for India's tourism sector as well. So this is what it was all about.